Now we have Mr. Philip Klapwijk. He is global precious metal site Thomson Reuters GFMS. Sir, do you consider the gold is overpriced at present?
Yes, in a way it is. I know that's a controversial thing to say, but if we look at cost of production, all-in cost of production on an average basis is a little bit under $1,000 per ounce. So we could argue that gold at nearly $1,700 at the moment is rather overpriced, but there's a good reason why it's overpriced, and that is because investors require a hedge. They require a asset that is nobody else's liability at the moment to protect themselves against government policy, against inflation, against the low interest rate environment, etc., etc.
So GFMS has been telling this for quite some time that gold price is actually overpriced now. For last 2-3 years I am hearing GFMS is telling one again and again, be careful, we are at the higher band.
Well, I think our caution is justified because if we look at the fundamentals of the gold market and for the moment put aside the question of investment demand, the market is unbalanced. In other words, there's a very significant surplus in the market, a surplus that this year might be of the order of 2,200 tonnes. And that surplus needs to be acquired by somebody, and it's partly being acquired by central banks, but it's mainly being acquired by investors. And our concern is if investors don't step up to the plate, if investors don't have appetite for such a large quantity of gold, then the price may well start to correct towards a lower equilibrium.
It is obvious that if price comes down, it will be very good for at least for us. We Indians love to buy gold.
I am absolutely certain that if the price were to fall substantially in Indian rupee terms, we'd see a turnaround in the jewellery market in India and much higher levels of demand. I don't think people would buy immediately. They'd perhaps wait and see where prices settle, but once prices settled at a lower level, we'd see a powerful stimulus to demand in this country.
See, this year the government has become a protectionist because of the high current account deficits. So do you think there will be a substantial demand will drop if this continues, if the government becomes the protectionist?
Well, looking at the measures that the government has currently put in place, namely the 4% duty, this is clearly making gold a bit more expensive than it would otherwise be in rupee terms. But the main factor behind record rupee gold prices is, of course, the record price of gold in the international market and also the weakness of the Indian currency against the US dollar. It really depends upon whether the government were to take more activist measures. If we were to see, for example, the imposition of quotas or other such measures to actively reduce the volume of demand in India, then that might well have clearly an impact on the size, scale and operation of the local market. But I think the main thing at the moment is not so much government policy, it's just a question of price. And price at the moment is holding back demand in India. There's effectively a budget constraint which is currently operating.
Nice to hear that you are talking about more about the price than the government policies. Now, what's your idea about the platinum? Should platinum will slowly enter into this market because gold price is extremely high?
I think at the margin we should see good prospects for growth in platinum jewellery demand. I think urban consumers in India who are looking for fashion jewellery may well find platinum an interesting metal to purchase for adornment jewellery purposes. But if we look at the role that gold jewellery has in the Indian market, high carat gold jewellery, there's no way that platinum can really begin to even encroach on that, let alone replace it.
You are seeing gold price to decline towards 1100 approximately by 2015?
Yes, our base case forecast, assuming that we see a change in the interest rate cycle and tightening of monetary policy by then, is for prices to certainly fall by that date. And that's really basis a lower level of investment demand. We basically think that by then the case for gold investment will be much less persuasive than it is today. If we see, for example, higher interest rates, if we see a secular appreciation by then in the US dollar, that will lead to a very different set of circumstances against which investors need to make their decision whether to invest in gold or not.
But these advanced economists are still in problem. How you can anticipate this economy will revive in 2 years?
Well, I think it would be an error to assume that we are forever going to be in an environment of zero or negative real interest rates. At some point, one assumes the interest rate cycle will turn. At some point, economies like the US economy will have paid back, decent part of their debts and will be able to grow again on a self-sustaining basis. And at that point, central banks will start to be concerned about inflation, and we will see a change in the interest rate cycle. That may be in 2 years' time, it may be in 3 years' time. It's very difficult to say at this stage.
Nice to talk to you, Mr. Klapwijk. It is a pleasure for me to be in the Bullion Bulletin counter, and I like to continue with good work with you in near future, and I am happy to get you whenever you are available in India or anywhere in the world.
Delighted. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is Philip Klapwijk, Head Global Precious Metals, Thomson Reuters GFM.